Hi guys, welcome to First Chapter Fridays. This week I'm reading to you from I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter by Erika L. Sanchez. Chapter 1. What surprised me most about seeing my sister dead is the lingering smirk on her face. Her pale lips are turned up ever so slightly, and someone has filled in her patchy eyebrows with a black pencil. The top half of her face is angry, like she's ready to stab someone. The bottom half is almost snug. But this is not the Olga I know. Olga was as meek and fragile as a baby bird. I wanted her to wear the pretty purple dress that didn't hide her body like all her other outfits, but Amma chose the bright yellow one with the pink flowers. I've always hated. It wasn't so unstylish, so classically Olga. It made her either 4 or 80 years old. I could never decide which. Her hair is just as bad as the dress. Tight, crunchy curls that remind me of a rich lady's poodle. How cruel to let her look like that. The bruises and gashes on her cheeks are masked with thick coats of cheap foundation, making her face haggard, even though was only 22. Don't they pump your body full of strange chemicals to prevent your skin from stretching and puckering? To keep your face from resembling a rubber mask? Where did they find the mortician? The flea market? My poor older sister had a special talent for making herself less attractive. She was skinny and had an okay body, but she always managed to make it look like a sack of potatoes. Her face was pale and plain, never a single drop of makeup. What a waste. I'm no fashion icon, far from it, but I do feel strongly against dressing like the elderly. Now she's doing it from beyond the grave, but this time it's not even her fault. Olga never looked or acted like a normal 22-year-old. It made me mad sometimes. Here she was, a grown-ass woman, and all she did was go to work, sit at home with her parents, and take one class each semester at the local community college. Every once in a while, she'd go shopping with Amma or to the movies with her best friend Angie to watch terrible romantic comedies about clumsy but adorable blonde women who fall in love with architects in the streets of New York City. What kind of life is that? Didn't she want more? Didn't she ever want to go out and grab the world by the balls? Ever since I could pick up a pen, I've wanted to be a famous writer. I want to be so successful that people stop me on the street and ask, "Oh my God, are you Julia Reyes, the best writer who has ever graced this earth?" All I know is that I'm going to pack my bags when I graduate and say, "Peace out." But not Olga. Saint Olga, the perfect Mexican daughter. Sometimes I want to scream at her until something switched on in her brain. The only time I ever asked her why she didn't move out or go to a real college, she told me to leave her alone in a voice so weak and brittle, I never wanted to ask her again. Now I'll never know what Olga would have become. Maybe she would have surprised us all. Here I am thinking all of these terrible thoughts about my dead sister. It's easier to be pissed, though. If I stop being angry, I'm afraid I'll fall apart until I'm just a warm mound of flesh on the floor. While I stare at my chewed-up nails and sink deeper into the floppy green couch, I hear Amma wailing. She really throws her body into it. "Mija, Mija," she screams as she practically climbs inside the casket. Appa doesn't even try to pull her off. I can't blame him, because when he tried to calm her down a few hours ago, Amma kicked and flailed her arms until she gave him a black eye. I guess he's going to leave her alone for now. She'll tire herself out eventually. I've seen babies do that. Appa has been sitting in the back of the room all day, refusing to speak to anyone, staring off into nothing, like he always does. Sometimes I think his dark mustache quivering, but his eyes stay dry and clear as glass. I want to hug Amma and tell her it's going to be okay, even though it's not, and never will be. But I feel almost paralyzed, like I'm underwater and made of lead. When I open my mouth, nothing comes out. Besides, Amma and I haven't had that kind of relationship since I was little. We don't hug and say I love you like on TV shows about boring white families who live in two-story houses and talk about their feelings. She and Olga were practically best friends, and I was the odd daughter out. We've been bickering, drifting away from each other for years. I've spent so much of my life trying to avoid Amma because we always end up arguing over stupid, petty things. We once fought about an egg yolk, for instance. True story. Appa and I are the only ones in my family who haven't cried. He just hangs his head and remains silent as a stone. Maybe something is wrong with us. Maybe we're messed up beyond crying. Though my eyes haven't produced tears, I felt the grief burrow in every cell of my body. There are moments I feel like I might suffocate, as if all of my insides are tied into a tight little ball. I haven't taken a crap in almost 4 days, but I'm not about to tell Amma the state she's in. I'll just let it build until I explode like a piñata. Amma has always been prettier than Olga, even now, with her swollen eyes and splotchy skin, which is not the way it's supposed to be. Her name is more graceful too. Amparo Montenegro Reyes. Mothers are not supposed to be more beautiful than their daughters, and daughters are not supposed to die before their mothers. But Amma is more attractive than most people. She hardly has any wrinkles and has these big round eyes that always look sad and wounded. Her long hair is thick and dark, and her body is still slim, unlike the other moms in the neighborhood who are shaped like upside-down pears. Every time I walk down the street with Amma, guys whistle and honk, which makes me wish I carried a slingshot. Amma is rubbing Olga's face and crying softly now. This won't last, though. She's always quiet for a few minutes, and all of a sudden lets out a moan that makes your soul turn inside out. Now Tia Kuka is rubbing her back and telling her that Olga is with Jesus, that she can finally be in peace. But when was Olga not in peace? This Jesus stuff is all a sack of crap. Once you're dead, you're dead. The only thing that makes sense to me is what Walt Whitman said about death. Look for me under your boot soles. Olga's body will turn to dirt, which will grow into trees, and then someone in the future will step on their fallen leaves. There is no heaven. There is only earth, sky, and the transfer of energy. The idea would almost be beautiful if this weren't such a nightmare. 2 ladies waiting in line to see Olga in her casket begin crying. I've never seen them in my life. One is wearing a faded and billowy black dress, and the other wears a saggy skirt that looks like an old curtain. They clasp each other's hands and whisper. Olga and I didn't have much in common, but we did love each other. There are stacks and stacks of pictures to prove it. And Amma's favorite, Olga is braiding my hair. Amma says Olga used to pretend that I was her baby. She put me in her toy carriage and sang me songs by Zeppelin, that scary Mexican clown who looks like a rapist but everyone loves for some reason. I would give anything to go back to the day she died and do things differently. I think of all the ways I could have kept Olga from getting on that bus. I replayed the day over and over in my head so many times, and have written down every single detail, but I still can't find the foreshadowing. When someone dies, people always say that they had some sort of premonition, a sinking feeling that something awful was right around the corner. I didn't. The day felt like any other, boring, uneventful, and annoying. We had swimming for gym class that afternoon. I've always hated being that disgusting petri dish. The idea of being dunked in everyone's pee, God knows what else, is enough to give me a panic attack, and the chlorine makes my skin itch and eyes sting. I always try to get out of it with elaborate and not so elaborate lies. That time, I told the thin-lipped Mrs. Kowalski that I was on my period again, the 8th day in a row, and she said she didn't believe me, that it was impossible for my period to be so long. Of course I was lying, but who was she to question my menstrual cycle? How intrusive. Do you want to check, I asked? I'd be very happy to provide you with empirical evidence if you want, even though I think you're violating my human rights. I regretted it as soon as it came out of my mouth. Maybe I have some sort of condition that keeps me from thinking through what I'm going to say. Sometimes it's word puke spilling out everywhere. That was too much, even for me. But I was in a particularly foul mood and didn't want to deal with anyone. My moods shift like that all the time, even before Olga died. One minute I feel okay, then all of a sudden my energy plummets for no reason at all. It's hard to explain. Of course, Mrs. Kowalski sent me to the principal's office, and as usual, they wouldn't let me go home until my parents came to pick me up. This had happened several times last year. Everyone knows me at the principal's office already, I'm there more often than some of the gangbangers, and it's always ruining my mouth when I'm not supposed to. Whenever I enter the office, the secretary, Mrs. Maldonado, rolls her eyes and clucks her tongue. Typically, Alma meets with my principal, Mr. Potter, who tells her what a disrespectful student I am. Then, Alma gasps at what I've done and says, "Julia," and apologizes to him over and over again in her broken English. She is always apologizing to white people, which makes me feel embarrassed. And then I feel ashamed of my shame. Alma punishes me for 1 or 2 weeks, depending on how severe my behavior is. And then a few months later, it happens again. Like I said, I don't know how to control my mouth. Alma tells me, "Como te gusta la mala vida?" And I guess she's right, because I always end up making things more difficult for myself. I used to be a model student, skipped 3rd grade and everything, and now I'm a troublemaker. Olga had taken the bus that day because her car was in the shop to get the brakes replaced. Alma was supposed to pick her up, but because she had to deal with me at school, she couldn't. If I had shut my mouth, things would have worked out differently, but how was I supposed to know? When Olga got off the bus to transfer to another one across the street, she didn't see that the light had already turned green because she was looking at her phone. The bus honked to warn her, but it was too late. Olga stepped into the busy street at the wrong time. She got hit by a semi. Not just hit, though. Smashed. And that is I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. If you are interested in a copy of this, I have a few extra copies here that you can check out. The public library also has a few copies available, and we will be discussing this book Tuesday through the public library. So I hope you can join us. Enjoy.